Okay, welcome back. Welcome to our next session. And we have three talks during this next session. And I'm just going to get right to it once again. Those of you who were not here earlier, I'm David Guralnick from Kaleidoscope Learning and Columbia University in New York. And I'm delighted to have Jeremy Prince with us. Jeremy is the managing director of Rise Up and is going to talk about empowering employees and organizations. So let's please welcome Jeremy.
Thank you. Is it working? Yeah, looks like it. Well, hope you're all having a good exhibition so far. No strikes today, so hopefully that should be okay. As introduced, I'm Jeremy Prince. I joined Rise Up quite recently. I joined in September 2022. Quite new to the industry because I come from a totally different industry. If we go back to who Rise Up is, for the ones that don't know Rise Up. So it's a French-based company that was created in 2014. It's a platform with LMS, LXP, training, authoring tools, all that to provide teams with blended learning. So blended learning, if you're not familiar with it, but I'm sure you are, it's any kind of learning going from fully digital to in-person learning and mixing all that. We're in 60 countries today. We've got over 1 million active users, 120 employees. Half of them roughly are tech and product. And we're French-based, but we've got 7 offices across Europe. So Paris, of course, but also London, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Portugal. We've got around 500 customers. You can see quite a few logos there, ranging from training organizations to retail to big insurance companies, construction, you name it, I'm sure we've got it. So very diverse, so it gives us quite a large view of the needs and the different needs in the industry. So we're going to spend the next half hour talking together about learning and training the employees. It's funny, as I mentioned, I come from another industry, and I noticed that every industry tends to have its own belief and something that they really focus on. And when I joined the learning space, it's all about the future. We need to prepare employees for tomorrow's jobs. We need to be ready for the transformation of our businesses, etc., etc. This is very true, but at the same time, preparing someone for a job that doesn't exist yet can be tricky. And that's why, in fact, when you look at what your employees say, the struggle is that 70% of them, according to a Gartner study, get the feeling that they don't have the skill set to master their job today. And it's quite crucial because if you want them to execute today, if you want them to feel comfortable in their daily job, retention, efficiency, you need them to be at ease today. That's why we tend to say that being future ready is good and you need to be future ready, but it starts today. You need to shift to today in order to be ready for tomorrow and in order for your employees to be up to skill. So that's the little catchy marketing statement that we have, but we're really convinced that our mission is to own today. And by that, we mean that we need to help organizations, we need to help you to stay up to skill, to be ready on the day for what your employees have got to achieve today. So how do we do that at Rise Up? Well, first, let's go back to what this means. I'm going to state the obvious, but sometimes people forget the obvious. When you design your training strategy, you've got to make sure that it's aligned with your business needs. You need to align your training strategy with the metrics in the company, with the long-term objectives in your company, and you need to match and monitor your training strategy and its effects compared to those key indicators and those key objectives. Second important thing, we all know that organizations are full of people that are totally different ages, different countries, different functions, and when you roll out your training strategy, you've got to keep into account that you must address very diverse publics. And the best way for that is to offer them their own learning program. How do you adapt your learning program to the different type of employees in your organization? There are all sorts of things. We use positioning tests to define their needs. We have different groups, and employees can be part of different groups. And depending on the groups they are part of, they will have different type of training paths that will be offered to them. We will also have ways of monitoring through quizzes, etc., to make sure that we are on the dot. That's the second important part, but it's always good to have a well thought out training strategy. It's always good to be aligned with business goals to adapt to your employees. But in fact, one of the struggles that you probably all face is how do you get your employees to embrace the learning? How do you bring them to the learning, let's say? Well, what we have decided at Rise Up is the best way to do that is bring the learning to the employees. Make it part of their daily routine. So it's easy things like moving from computer to tablet to mobile, but it's also pushing it further, and we'll go back to that later on. It's integrating the learning paths in their everyday tools, such as Microsoft Teams, to give you an example, and we'll talk about that later. And of course, when you've got all that, you've got to make sure that you can scale. That's where technology kicks in. As I said, we're a tech-based company. And what does scale mean? You need to create your trainings in a fast and efficient way, back to the own today and being ready for today and adapting very quickly. You've got to leverage contents. We're part of a wide ecosystem. We work with content providers. So when we work with our customers, we can also recommend content to start the things, although you'll have your own content and you'll use our authoring tools. It's also dealing with all the administrative part of it that can be a hassle. I'm sure some of you struggle with that. And so all that is where tech kicks in, and tech helps you to be more efficient. Not even mentioning for the ones that are in international organizations, how it can be complicated to have a multi-language approach. There also, we need to help. So what we call it within Rise Up, and it's really what we try to do, is more than just being someone that provides tech solutions. We need to have a holistic approach. We need to work with you in what we call, another catchy marketing term, our Learning Ops framework. And what are the pillars of that framework? And you'll see that it matches what we've just said. It's synchronization. We need to define together what your objectives are, what you're trying to achieve, and make sure that this is aligned. Then scalability. You need to be able to scale and to scale quickly. Once again, that's where the tech kicks in. That's where we need to have the best-in-class possible platform, LMS, LXP, etc. And that's why we've got so many tech and product people in our organizations. In fact, the founders are two engineers, Arnaud and Guillaume Blachot. So there's really this tech at the heart of the company. But tech isn't enough. If we just dump some tech solutions on your desk, you're just going to be lost. And what makes a huge difference for us, we believe, is how we work with you, how we make sure that everything is effective with our customer success management, with our people that work along the whole life cycle of our partnership with you guys. So once you've synced, you're ready to scale, you made sure that you're effective, but how do you know if you're effective? And that's where measuring the results of your training campaigns is important. And one of the key KPIs that we believe you need to measure, and it's linked to the Own Today statement earlier on, is time to skill. What is time to skill? Time to skill is crucial. It's the time needed between the moment you as an organization identify a need, you deploy it, and you train your employees, and they are ready and they master the skill to own that day. So really, time to skill is crucial, because the shorter it is, the more flexible you are, the more efficient you are. If I can just dig into something that I briefly mentioned earlier on, but is very important in our strategy and is a key differentiator. It's really this learning in the flow of work concept. When I was saying if you can't get the employee to the training, bring the training to him. I think everyone that's operating in the European markets have had the joy of convincing their employees of following the GDPR course or others like that. So how do you make sure that they can be engaged? This is, if this works. First of all, the initial challenge that we faced there and that was at the heart of our reflection is 24 minutes. That's the average available time your employees have to train. And it's not 24 minutes per day, it's 24 minutes per week. And it's also the fact that they will not, all employees in all organizations don't sit in front of a computer all day. So you'll also have to make sure that they have access in a timely manner and in an efficient manner to the content that you want to provide. We spoke about mobile, and that's basic. You need to make sure that your employees can access through their computer, tablets, mobile. I mean, in retail, when we work with companies like Leclerc, the cashier doesn't sit in front of a computer, so she needs to use her mobile if she wants to train, if it's not in for the parts that are not in person. And that is key. Honestly, you need to make sure that you adapt your training paths to how much time they've got and how they can access the training. So we mentioned mobile, that's also an easy step, but we tried to push it further, by integrating our learning paths or your learning paths in the flow of work. So meaning creating experiences that stay in the everyday routine of every employee. The first step for that was Microsoft Teams. A lot of organizations across the world use Microsoft Teams to communicate, to collaborate. So we pushed it further. When you're an employee of a company using RiseUp with Microsoft Teams, you stay in your Microsoft Teams environment and you work. And then if you've got a few minutes available, you can focus on your training program. It's really key for us to make sure that we take the learning path and we bring it to the employee and it's seamless for him. So what does it mean? If we focus on case studies now, just keeping an eye on the watch because I tend to talk a lot. Just two examples to illustrate how important and how successful learning in the flow of work can be. The first one is Akkodis, that some of you probably know better as Akka Technology, engineering and R&D multinational company. Their business challenge was, first of all, making sure that they created an atmosphere where training was seen as a long-term investment in the employees. Back to the GDPR example, where everyone says, oh no, I've got to follow my GDPR course, and it's really top-down. They wanted to have a more collaborative approach, a more collaborative strategy. They wanted also, because they're an international company, they have consistency, tongue twister, consistency across the different regions and countries. Their objectives were, like many companies, improve basically top line and bottom line, so improve their sales KPIs and of course their profitability, but also because they rely heavily on engineers, they wanted to make sure that their engineers, their high potential engineers, became really top digital skilled engineering consultants. So those were the two main targets. What we deployed with them was, first of all, back to target. We had targeted learning programs. We picked a few programs to start the experiment. Back to the challenges we were talking about, the 24 minutes, the fact that it's not always available to everyone. We needed to have flexible timing, and we focused on micro-learning sessions basically, so the ones that live in Paris and spend a lot of time in the underground, you can basically leave the office, and instead of, I don't know, checking out WhatsApp or Facebook, you can check your learning program. You can spend 10 minutes on your learning program. You can also do it during the day when you've got some time between 2 meetings or something like that. The idea was, of course, by creating those adapted medias and timing sessions to address all employees, support every talent. And the other thing that's quite important when you want to create a culture, and it's particularly relevant in the Teams environment, but we've also got our own features within the RiseUp platforms, is all the community features to really create this peer-to-peer atmosphere and this peer-to-peer learning. How successful was it? So really, if you look at the Net Promoter Score, so how likely was an employee to promote the operation, it was 8 out of 10. Training completion rate, 78%. So 78% of the employees went to the end of the training, what was a very good rate compared to what they'd experienced previously. Getting to the end of the training is one thing, but what sticks at the end of it, there also the knowledge score was 81%. So they were quite happy with those numbers. And on top of that, they were very satisfied with the fact that they really managed to create sort of a community around the learning and move from this top-down approach, you need to train for that, to a more bottom-up approach where the employees embraced the whole learning strategy. And of course, back to the numbers, they were expecting an impact on their numbers, top line and bottom line. They didn't give us the exact numbers, unfortunately, but according to what they told us, they had a big impact on sales KPIs, and especially the ability to price better. By training better, they could price better. So that was one example. The second example that I like to share with you today is Optiven. So Optiven, and I always check because I don't want to make a mistake, but they provide customized assistance and mechanical breakdown warranty solutions to car manufacturers. So a very different public. And as quite a few long-lasting, long-existing companies, they have got the challenge of digital transformation. So they wanted their training to help with the digital transformation. And they wanted to accelerate the time to skill. They started it with a new product, and they wanted to make sure that they could deploy rapidly. So identify a need, launch of a new product. How long does it take for my people, my salespeople, to be ready to sell that new product? So the objectives, of course, automate, define access to the courses like everyone else. Back to the personalized experience, make sure that everyone had a learning experience that was adapted to his needs, his profile. They like to have ambitious goals, so they put a minimum of 75% success rate. And to favor the customer engagement, they also used another of our tools that's all around gamification. How do you make sure that it's not just boring? It's the content, but it's also the experience around it. So we put in place multimodal training experiences, so blended, going from fully digital to in-person. So blended, you had fully digital, e-learning, quizzes, etc. But also some sessions in person to dig in deeper into some key issues. Of course, they've got a diverse public, so they needed the training to be available to everyone, and Microsoft Teams was key into this. If you look at the results and impacts, well, first of all, their first feedback is they were impressed with the authoring tool. So they told us that it was around 45 minutes for the first design of a training path. Go back to the time to skill issue. They were very happy with the completion rate because it's 100%, so you can hardly beat that. But once again, what stuck after they'd finished, it was quite significant too, because they reached an 80% average score on their trainings. Another 100%, but that's 100% of their objectives achieved. And now they're rolling out. They started with one line of product, and they're rolling out across the organization. So it was seamless and effective and had a very positive result. Check my watch again. Yes, I'm still good. So we're really pushing it further because we believe that training in the flow of work is key. Our next product will be, it's already being tested today as a beta test, but we'll be launching shortly the same concept in Salesforce, targeting more the sales teams that are always crucial. But in the coming months, we should also make available the Salesforce and RiseUp app for sales, but also marketing teams to stay in their environment, to stay in the environment they use every day to go through their learning drills. So that was just what I wanted to share briefly with you guys. I was told to keep it short, but if you have any questions, we'll have a bit of time now, or we're at booth L22, just opposite down there. You can't miss it, just next to the entrance, and plenty of people there that will be happy to have a chat with you and give you more details. So I don't know if you've got any questions at this stage.
All right, thank you so much. We do have time for a couple of questions if you want. And we have one right here.
Okay, this is a bit of a hard one, so it's because I'm trying to work through it as well. But sorry, hi, I'm Emma from Legal in General. So you said that RiseUp is obviously integrated with Teams at the moment, but obviously Microsoft are looking at Viva Learning, Viva Insight, Viva this, Viva that. And we work with companies as well where we use their platform and they've got it on Teams. But actually, are you looking at integrating that into Viva as like, is a Viva like a one-stop, or how is it going to differ?
At this stage, no. We're talking with them and we got this partnership ongoing with them. It's discussions that are ongoing, but no, for the moment they're focusing on their own developments.
Thank you. Hi, Emily Noella from SCORE. A question slightly linked to the previous one is, and I missed the beginning of the session, so apologies if you already spoke about this. You
didn't miss much.
But do you guys integrate with any sort of type of LMS? Because, for instance, if a company is using Cornerstone or something else, I think it's incredible the fact that it's already integrated with MS Teams. But then, as a company, how do we track also completion? How does it align with our, different content that we have within our LMS platforms?
So, yes, the short answer is yes. Of course, it can be standalone, RiseUp, but we do have a lot of organizations that have wider tools that are in place. And increasingly, in fact, we see that those organizations come to us and say that for the specific learning part, they'd like to have something additional and more specialized. And yes, we integrate it with existing platforms.
Okay. Anything else before we wrap up? All right. Well, wonderful. Well, Jeremy, thanks again. One more round of applause. And thanks once again. And we'll have another talk starting in just a couple of minutes, so stick around.
Thank you very much. Happy to see you, booth L22.